The morning sun cast long shadows across the small town of Millbrook as Sarah Thompson walked slowly toward the veterinary clinic. Her hands trembled as she clutched the worn leather leash that had belonged to Luna, her beloved German shepherd, who had been her constant companion for 12 years. The weight of grief pressed heavily on her chest, making each step feel like walking through thick mud. Luna had not been just any dog. She had been Sarah's lifeline during the darkest period of her life, when Sarah's husband died in a car accident 5 years earlier, leaving her alone with 2 young children. Luna had seemed to sense the family's pain. The intelligent dog had transformed from a playful pet into a gentle guardian, watching over 8-year-old Emma and 6-year-old Jake with remarkable devotion. The German shepherd had developed an extraordinary bond with the children. Every morning, Luna would wake them up by gently nuzzling their faces. She would walk them to the school bus stop, sitting patiently until the yellow vehicle disappeared around the corner. In the afternoon, she would be waiting at the same spot, tail wagging furiously when she spotted the bus returning. But 3 weeks ago, Luna had started showing signs of illness. She moved more slowly, ate less, and spent most of her time lying quietly in her favorite spot by the fireplace. The veterinary tests revealed the heartbreaking truth. Luna had developed an aggressive form of cancer that had already spread throughout her body. Dr. Martinez, the family veterinarian who had known Luna since she was a puppy, delivered the news with tears in his own eyes. There was nothing they could do. Luna was suffering, and the kindest thing would be to let her go peacefully. Sarah had made the most difficult decision of her life, scheduling Luna's final appointment for this morning. The children had said their goodbyes the night before. Emma, now 13, had buried her face in Luna's thick fur and whispered all the secrets she had shared with her 4-legged friend over the years. Jake, 11, had promised Luna that he would take care of his mother and sister, just like Luna had taken care of all of them. As Sarah entered the clinic, the familiar smell of antiseptic and the sound of barking from the boarding area hit her senses. The receptionist, Mrs. Chen, looked up with compassionate eyes. She had worked at the clinic for over 20 years and had seen many families face this same heartbreaking moment. Dr. Martinez appeared in the doorway of examination room 3, his kind face showing the same sadness that Sarah felt. He had delivered countless animals into the world and had helped many others find peace at the end of their lives. But Luna's case was special. He had watched this beautiful German shepherd grow from a tiny puppy into a magnificent dog who had become the heart of the Thompson family. Sarah knelt beside the examination table where Luna lay quietly, her breathing shallow but peaceful. The dog's dark eyes, though clouded with illness, still held that familiar spark of intelligence and love. Luna's tail managed a weak wag when she saw Sarah, and she tried to lift her head to nuzzle her human's hand. The procedure was gentle and quick. Dr. Martinez explained each step in a soft voice, ensuring that Luna felt no pain. Sarah held Luna's paw and whispered words of love and gratitude. She told Luna about all the wonderful memories they had shared. The long walks in the park, the camping trips where Luna would sleep curled up next to the children's sleeping bags, the countless evenings when Luna had provided silent comfort just by being present. As Luna's breathing slowed and finally stopped, a profound silence filled the room. Sarah felt as though a piece of her heart had been torn away. Luna had been more than a pet. She had been a family member, a protector, and a source of unconditional love during the most challenging years of their lives. Dr. Martinez gave Sarah time alone with Luna before gently covering the German shepherd's body with a soft blanket. He explained the arrangements that Sarah had made for Luna's burial in the pet cemetery on the outskirts of town. The family had chosen a beautiful spot under an old oak tree where Luna used to love playing fetch. When Sarah finally left the clinic, the world seemed different somehow. The colors appeared less vibrant, and the usual sounds of the busy street felt muffled and distant. She knew that returning home and telling the children that Luna was truly gone would be one of the hardest things she would ever have to do. The Thompson family had lost their guardian angel, but they had no idea that Luna's story was far from over. In the days that would follow, something extraordinary would happen that would challenge everything they thought they knew about love, loyalty, and the mysterious bonds that exist between humans and their beloved animals. The Pet Paradise Cemetery sat quietly on a hillside overlooking Millbrook, surrounded by tall pine trees that whispered in the gentle breeze. Sarah had chosen this place for Luna because it reminded her of the forest trails where they used to hike together. The cemetery was known for its peaceful atmosphere and the care with which they handled beloved pets during their family's most difficult moments. Robert Mitchell, the cemetery's director, had been running Pet Paradise for over 15 years. A tall man with silver hair and kind eyes, he understood the deep grief that pet owners experienced. He had seen thousands of families say their final goodbyes, and he took great pride in ensuring that every animal was treated with dignity and respect during their final journey. When Sarah arrived at the cemetery that afternoon with Emma and Jake, Robert met them at the entrance. The children were quiet, still processing the reality that Luna would never again greet them at the door or sleep at the foot of their beds. Sarah carried a small wooden box containing some of Luna's favorite toys, a well-chewed tennis ball, a rope toy that had survived countless games of tug-of-war, and the small stuffed rabbit that Luna had carried around like a puppy, even as a full-grown dog. Robert led them to the spot they had chosen under the magnificent oak tree. Its branches stretched wide, creating a natural canopy that filtered the afternoon sunlight into dancing patterns on the ground. Other grave markers dotted the area, each telling the story of a beloved companion who had touched human lives in profound ways. The casket Robert had prepared for Luna was beautiful in its simplicity. Made from smooth pine wood, it was large enough to accommodate the German Shepherd's impressive size while maintaining an elegant appearance. The cemetery's craftsman had engraved Luna's name on a small brass plate, along with the dates of her birth and death, and the simple inscription, "Beloved Guardian and Friend." As they gathered around the gravesite, Sarah shared stories about Luna with Robert. She told him about the dog's incredible intelligence, her protective nature, and the way she seemed to understand human emotions better than some people did. Emma added her own memories of Luna helping her with homework by sitting quietly beside her desk, and Jake talked about how Luna had taught him to be brave during thunderstorms. Robert listened with genuine interest. In his years at the cemetery, he had learned that these stories were an essential part of the healing process. Families needed to talk about their pets, to share the memories that made their companions so special. He had heard thousands of such stories, each one unique and precious. After the small ceremony, Robert explained the cemetery's procedures. Luna would rest in the casket overnight in the cemetery's chapel, a small building designed to provide families with a peaceful place for final visits. The burial would take place the following morning, giving the Thompson family one last opportunity to say goodbye if they wished. As evening approached, the cemetery grew quiet. The last visitors had departed, and Robert made his final rounds, checking that all gates were secure and that everything was in order for the night. The chapel where Luna lay in her casket was dimly lit by soft LED lights that cast a warm glow over the peaceful space. Robert had developed a routine over the years. He would walk through the chapel each evening, spending a few moments with each pet that was staying overnight. It was his way of ensuring that no animal spent their final night alone. He believed that even in death, these beloved companions deserved the same love and attention they had received in life. When he entered the chapel that night, Robert immediately noticed something unusual. The temperature in the room seemed different, cooler than normal despite the warm spring evening. He checked the air conditioning system, but everything appeared to be functioning normally. Dismissing it as his imagination, he approached Luna's casket. The German Shepherd looked peaceful, her thick fur still glossy even in death. Robert had positioned her carefully with her head resting on a small pillow and her paws crossed naturally. It was a dignified pose that reflected the noble character Luna had displayed throughout her life. As Robert stood beside the casket, he felt an unexpected sense of presence in the room. It was not frightening or unsettling, but rather comforting, as if Luna's spirit was somehow still watching over the space. He had experienced this feeling occasionally over the years, particularly with animals who had been especially devoted to their families. Robert whispered a few words to Luna, thanking her for the joy she had brought to the Thompson family, and wishing her peace in whatever came next. It was a personal ritual he performed for every animal in his care, a gesture of respect for the love they had shared with their human companions. Before leaving the chapel, Robert double-checked that everything was secure. The casket was positioned correctly. The flowers that Sarah and the children had brought were arranged beautifully around the base, and the memorial candle they had lit earlier still flickered softly in its holder. As he turned off the main lights and activated the security system, Robert felt that strange sense of presence once more. He paused at the door, looking back at Luna's casket one final time. Everything appeared exactly as he had left it, yet something felt different about the atmosphere in the room. Shaking his head at his own imagination, Robert locked the chapel and headed home to his own family. He had no way of knowing that during the quiet hours of the night, something extraordinary would occur that would challenge everything he thought he understood about the bond between pets and their families. Luna's journey was about to take a turn that would leave everyone involved questioning the very nature of love and loyalty. The night security guard at Pet Paradise Cemetery was a quiet man named Thomas Wright, who had worked the overnight shift for 3 years. Thomas preferred the solitude of his job, finding peace in the silence broken only by the sounds of nocturnal wildlife and the distant hum of traffic from the main road. He was a former military veteran who understood loss and respected the sacred nature of his workplace. Thomas began his shift at 11 o'clock, just as he did every night. He checked the perimeter fence, ensured all gates were locked, and tested the security cameras positioned throughout the grounds. The chapel where Luna rested in her casket was included in his regular patrol route, though he typically only glanced inside through the windows to confirm everything was undisturbed. Around midnight, as Thomas made his first complete circuit of the grounds, he noticed something that made him pause. From outside the chapel, he could see what appeared to be a faint, unusual light emanating from within. It was not the normal LED lighting that Robert had left on, but rather a soft, warm glow that seemed to pulse gently like a heartbeat. Thomas had seen many strange things during his years working in the cemetery. Shadows that moved when no wind was present, unexplained sounds that could not be attributed to animals or settling buildings, and occasional reports from daytime visitors who claimed to have felt the presence of their departed pets. He had learned to approach such phenomena with careful observation rather than immediate dismissal. Using his master key, Thomas quietly entered the chapel. The moment he stepped inside, he felt a distinct change in the atmosphere. The air seemed charged with an energy he could not identify, and the temperature was noticeably cooler than it should have been given the warm spring night. The strange light he had observed from outside appeared to be concentrated around Luna's casket. As Thomas approached the casket, his trained military instincts kicked in. Something was definitely different about the scene. The flowers that had been carefully arranged around the base of the casket appeared to have been disturbed, though not scattered or damaged. Instead, they seemed to have been gently repositioned as if by invisible hands that had moved them with loving care. More puzzling still was the condition of Luna's body within the casket. When Thomas had briefly observed the German Shepherd earlier in the evening, she had appeared as any deceased animal would, still, peaceful, but clearly lifeless. Now, however, Luna's position had changed subtly. Her head was turned slightly toward the chapel's entrance, and one of her front paws had moved to rest near her chest in a more natural sleeping position. Thomas rubbed his eyes, wondering if the late hour was playing tricks on his vision. He had seen the effects of rigor mortis before, and he knew that bodies could shift as muscles relaxed. But this seemed different somehow. The changes appeared too deliberate, too purposeful to be explained by natural processes. As he stood beside the casket, Thomas heard a sound that made his blood run cold. It was soft and barely audible, but unmistakably present, the gentle sound of breathing. Slow, rhythmic inhalations and exhalations that seemed to be coming from within the casket itself. Thomas leaned closer, his heart pounding as he tried to determine if his ears were deceiving him. The breathing sound was definitely real, and it was definitely coming from Luna. Thomas stared at the German Shepherd's chest, watching for any sign of movement. For several long moments he saw nothing. Then, so subtly that he almost missed it, Luna's ribcage rose and fell in a barely perceptible breath. Thomas stepped back from the casket, his mind racing. He had served in combat zones where life and death decisions had to be made in split seconds. But this situation was beyond anything in his experience. Could Luna still be alive? Had there been some terrible mistake at the veterinary clinic? Was he witnessing some kind of miracle? Or was his own grief-tired mind creating illusions? He pulled out his cell phone and checked the time. 12:47 a.m. Thomas knew he needed to call Robert Mitchell immediately, but he hesitated. What would he say? That he thought a dead dog was breathing? That mysterious lights were surrounding a casket? Robert was a reasonable man, but even he might question Thomas's mental state if presented with such an incredible story. Instead, Thomas decided to observe for a few more minutes, documenting everything he witnessed. If Luna was somehow still alive, time would be critical. If he was experiencing some kind of hallucination or breakdown, he needed to be certain before alarming others in the middle of the night. As Thomas watched, the gentle breathing continued. Luna's chest rose and fell with increasing regularity, and her body seemed to relax further into a more natural sleeping position. The strange light around the casket grew slightly brighter, creating an almost ethereal atmosphere in the chapel. Then, something happened that removed all doubt from Thomas's mind. Luna's tail, which had been lying still across her hind legs, began to move. It was not the vigorous wagging that characterized her joyful greetings in life, but a slow, gentle movement that suggested awareness and perhaps even contentment. Thomas immediately reached for his radio to contact the emergency services. But before he could make the call, Luna's eyes opened. Those familiar dark eyes, which had been clouded with illness and death just hours before, now looked clear and alert. They focused on Thomas with an intelligence that was unmistakably alive and aware. The German shepherd's head turned slightly, and she looked directly at Thomas as if recognizing him as a friend rather than a stranger. There was no fear or confusion in her expression, only a calm acceptance of her unusual circumstances. Luna appeared to be fully conscious and surprisingly peaceful, given the extraordinary nature of her situation. Thomas knew that what he was witnessing would change everything for the Thompson family. For Robert Mitchell, for Dr. Martinez, and for everyone who had known and loved Luna. This was no longer just the story of a beloved pet's peaceful death, but the beginning of something miraculous that would challenge everything they thought they knew about life, death, and the power of love. Thomas Wright's hand shook as he dialed Robert Mitchell's number. The chapel remained filled with that strange warm light, and Luna continued to breathe peacefully in her casket, her eyes following Thomas's movements with gentle awareness. At 1:15 a.m., Robert's phone rang repeatedly before his groggy voice answered. "Robert, this is Thomas at the cemetery. I need you to come here immediately. Something impossible is happening with the German shepherd in the chapel," Thomas said, trying to keep his voice steady despite the extraordinary circumstances. Robert, initially annoyed at being woken in the middle of the night, quickly became alert when he heard the urgency in Thomas's voice. The security guard was known for his calm professionalism and practical nature. If Thomas was calling about something impossible, it demanded immediate attention. Within 20 minutes, Robert's truck pulled into the cemetery parking lot. He found Thomas waiting outside the chapel, pacing nervously with his flashlight in hand. The usually composed veteran looked shaken and kept glancing back at the chapel door as if something inside might disappear if he looked away too long. "I know how this is going to sound," Thomas began as Robert approached, "but the German shepherd is alive. She's breathing. Her eyes are open, and she's been watching me for over 30 minutes. I've seen a lot of things in my life, Robert, but nothing like this." Robert's first instinct was to assume that Thomas had made an error or was experiencing some kind of stress-related episode. However, when they entered the chapel together, Robert immediately felt the same unusual energy that Thomas had described. The temperature was indeed cooler than normal, and there was definitely an unexplainable light emanating from around Luna's casket. As they approached the casket, Robert stopped dead in his tracks. Luna's eyes were indeed open and alert, tracking their movement across the room. Her breathing was visible and steady, and her tail moved slightly when she saw them approaching. This was clearly not the same lifeless animal that Robert had carefully positioned in the casket earlier that evening. Robert had worked with deceased animals for 15 years. He knew what death looked like, and he also knew what life looked like. What he was seeing now was unmistakably a living, breathing German shepherd who somehow had returned from death during the night. His scientific mind struggled to process the evidence before his eyes. "We need to call Dr. Martinez immediately," Robert said, pulling out his cell phone. "And we need to contact the Thompson family. Sarah needs to know what's happening." Dr. Martinez answered on the third ring, his voice thick with sleep. When Robert explained the situation, There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Dr. Martinez had been a veterinarian for over 25 years, and he had never received a call quite like this one. "Are you absolutely certain she's alive?" Dr. Martinez asked, his medical training taking over despite the bizarre nature of the situation. "I performed the euthanasia procedure myself. I checked for vital signs multiple times. Luna was definitely deceased when she left my clinic." Robert handed the phone to Thomas, who described exactly what he had observed throughout the night. The breathing, the eye movement, the repositioning of Luna's body, and the gentle tail wagging that suggested not just life, but awareness and even contentment. Dr. Martinez agreed to come to the cemetery immediately, bringing his medical equipment to properly assess Luna's condition. He warned them not to move the German Shepherd until he could examine her, as her physical state after such an extraordinary experience was completely unknown. While they waited for Dr. Martinez to arrive, Robert faced the difficult decision of whether to call Sarah Thompson. It was nearly 2 o'clock in the morning, and waking a grieving family with news that seemed impossible might cause more harm than good. However, if Luna was truly alive, Sarah had a right to know immediately. Robert decided to wait until Dr. Martinez could confirm Luna's condition before making that call. In the meantime, he and Thomas remained in the chapel, watching over the German Shepherd who had somehow defied death itself. Luna appeared comfortable and peaceful, occasionally looking at her human companions with those familiar intelligent eyes. As they waited, Thomas shared more details about his observations. The strange light had been present throughout the night, sometimes brighter and sometimes dimmer, but consistently centered around Luna's casket. The temperature changes seemed to coincide with Luna's breathing patterns, cooling when she inhaled and warming slightly when she exhaled. Robert documented everything with his phone, taking pictures and videos that he knew would be crucial evidence of this extraordinary event. The images clearly showed Luna's alert eyes, the rise and fall of her chest, and the subtle movements that indicated not just life, but a return to the gentle personality that had made her so beloved by the Thompson family. When Dr. Martinez's headlights finally appeared in the cemetery parking lot, both Robert and Thomas felt a mixture of relief and anticipation. A medical professional would be able to provide answers about Luna's condition and help them understand how such an impossible thing could have occurred. Dr. Martinez entered the chapel carrying his veterinary bag, his expression serious and focused. He had spent the drive to the cemetery trying to prepare himself for what he might find, but nothing could have truly prepared him for the sight of Luna looking back at him with clear, living eyes. The veterinarian approached the casket slowly, speaking to Luna in the same gentle voice he had used during her final moments at the clinic. Luna's tail wagged weakly when she heard his familiar voice, and she made a soft sound that was part whimper and part greeting. Dr. Martinez carefully examined Luna while she remained in the casket, checking her breathing, pulse, and reflexes. Her vital signs were not only present but surprisingly strong for an animal who had been deceased for over 12 hours. Her eyes responded normally to light, her gums showed healthy color, and her temperature was within normal range. "This is medically impossible," Dr. Martinez whispered, more to himself than to the others, "but she's definitely alive. Her vital signs are actually better than they were yesterday morning when I examined her. The cancer symptoms that were so advanced seem to have disappeared." As Dr. Martinez continued his examination, Luna remained calm and cooperative, as if she understood that these humans were trying to help her. The mysterious light around the casket seemed to pulse gently in rhythm with her heartbeat, creating an atmosphere of wonder and reverence in the small chapel. At 3:30 in the morning, Robert Mitchell made the phone call that would change the Thompson family's life forever. Sarah answered after several rings, her voice thick with sleep, and immediately concerned that someone was calling at such an unusual hour. "Sarah, this is Robert from Pet Paradise Cemetery. I need you to sit down because I have something incredible to tell you about Luna," Robert began, his voice gentle but filled with excitement he could barely contain. Sarah's heart immediately began racing. She assumed there had been some problem with the burial arrangements or perhaps damage to the cemetery from a storm. Nothing could have prepared her for Robert's next words. "Luna is alive. Sarah, she's breathing, her eyes are open, and she's looking at us right now. Dr. Martinez is here examining her, and he confirms that she has somehow returned to life during the night." The silence on the other end of the phone stretched for what felt like minutes, Sarah sat on the edge of her bed, trying to process words that seemed to make no sense. Luna was dead. She had held her beloved pet as life left her body just yesterday morning. The grief counselor had warned her that denial was a normal part of the mourning process, but this seemed beyond anything she had expected. "That's not possible," Sarah finally whispered. "I was there when she died. Dr. Martinez pronounced her dead. We said goodbye. This has to be some kind of mistake." Robert understood her disbelief, but he also knew that what he was witnessing was absolutely real. He held his phone up toward Luna's casket so Sarah could hear the gentle sound of the German Shepherd's breathing through the speaker. "Sarah, I know this sounds impossible, but you need to come here now. Bring Emma and Jake. Luna is asking for her family." By the time Sarah arrived at the cemetery with her children, word of the miraculous event had begun to spread. Thomas had called his supervisor, who had contacted the local news station. Dr. Martinez had reached out to veterinary colleagues, seeking any medical explanation for what they were witnessing. The small chapel that had been peaceful and quiet just hours earlier was now filled with people trying to understand the impossible. Emma and Jake ran toward the chapel, their initial skepticism replaced by desperate hope when they saw their mother's tears of joy rather than grief. When they entered the chapel and saw Luna looking back at them with bright, alert eyes, both children began crying and laughing simultaneously. Luna's reaction to seeing her family was the most emotional moment anyone in the chapel had ever witnessed. The German Shepherd's tail began wagging with increasing strength, and she made soft whimpering sounds of recognition and joy. When Sarah approached the casket, Luna managed to lift her head and nuzzle her human mother's hand, just as she had done thousands of times before. Dr. Martinez had never seen anything like Luna's medical condition. Not only was she alive and alert, but the aggressive cancer that had been ravaging her body seemed to have completely disappeared. Her blood work, which he had drawn using portable equipment, showed no trace of the disease that had been killing her just days before. "Her cellular structure appears to have regenerated," Dr. Martinez explained to the growing crowd of witnesses. "The tumors that were clearly visible on her x-rays last week are simply gone. Her organ function is not just normal, it's optimal. Medically speaking, she's healthier now than she was 6 months ago." Emma climbed onto a chair beside the casket so she could be closer to Luna. The German Shepherd gently licked the 13-year-old's face, causing fresh tears of happiness to stream down the girl's cheeks. Jake held Luna's paw and told her about all the things they would do together, now that she had come back to them. As dawn began to break over the cemetery, more people continued to arrive. Robert had contacted the local pastor, knowing that many in the community would view Luna's return as a spiritual event. Dr. Sarah Chen, a professor of veterinary medicine from the nearby university, came to observe and potentially document what could be a groundbreaking medical case. The mysterious light that had surrounded Luna's casket throughout the night began to fade as natural sunlight filled the chapel. However, the sense of wonder and reverence in the room only grew stronger as more people witnessed Luna's impossible recovery. News crews began setting up outside the cemetery gates, though Robert was careful to limit access to protect the Thompson family's privacy during this overwhelming experience. The story of Luna's return from death would soon capture the attention of people around the world, but for now, it remained an intimate miracle shared among those who loved her most. Luna herself seemed remarkably comfortable with all the attention. She greeted each new visitor with gentle tail wags and the dignified calm that had always characterized her personality. Several people commented that she seemed not just alive, but somehow more peaceful and wise than she had been before her death. As the morning progressed, Dr. Martinez carefully helped Luna out of the casket for the first time. The German Shepherd stood on unsteady legs at first, but within minutes she was walking normally around the chapel. Her movements were fluid and pain-free, showing none of the discomfort that had marked her final weeks of illness. The Thompson family watched in amazement as Luna explored the chapel, sniffing flowers and greeting visitors with the curiosity and friendliness that had always made her special. It was as if she had awakened from a long sleep, rather than returning from death itself. Professor Chen took extensive notes and photographs, documenting what she described as the most extraordinary veterinary case she had encountered in 30 years of practice. She arranged for Luna to undergo comprehensive medical testing at the university, to better understand the mechanisms behind her recovery. As the family prepared to take Luna home, Sarah reflected on the incredible journey they had all experienced. 24 hours earlier, they had been devastated by the loss of their beloved companion. Now they were witnesses to what could only be described as a miracle that had brought their guardian angel back to them. Luna walked out of the Pet Paradise Cemetery Chapel on her own 4 legs, surrounded by the family who loved her and observed by dozens of people whose lives had been touched by witnessing something truly extraordinary. Her return from death had brought hope and wonder to everyone present, proving that the bonds of love between humans and their animal companions could transcend even death itself. The news of Luna's miraculous return spread like wildfire through Millbrook and beyond. Within 48 hours, the Thompson family found themselves at the center of a media storm that neither they nor Luna could have imagined. News vans lined their quiet street, and reporters from major networks requested interviews about the German Shepherd who had defied death. Sarah struggled to balance protecting her family's privacy while sharing Luna's incredible story with a world hungry for hope and wonder. She agreed to a few carefully selected interviews, always with Luna by her side, showing the world that their beloved pet was not only alive but thriving in ways that seemed impossible. Dr. Martinez found his veterinary practice overwhelmed with calls from colleagues around the globe. Veterinary schools requested Luna's medical records, and researchers offered to study her case for free. The scientific community was divided between those who sought logical explanations and those who accepted that some things transcended current medical understanding. Professor Chen's preliminary tests at the university revealed results that baffled the entire medical team. Luna's cellular structure showed no signs of having undergone death and decomposition. More remarkably, her DNA appeared to have been somehow repaired at a molecular level, eliminating not just the cancer, but also the normal wear and tear associated with aging. It's as if her body has been restored to a perfect state, Professor Chen explained to the team of researchers who had gathered to study Luna's case. Her muscles, organs, and nervous system are functioning at optimal levels. From a biological standpoint, she's essentially been given a completely healthy new body while retaining all her memories and personality. At home, Luna settled back into her familiar routines with remarkable ease. She resumed her morning ritual of waking Emma and Jake with gentle nudges, though now her presence felt even more precious to the children who had thought they would never experience those moments again. The German Shepherd seemed to understand that she had been given an extraordinary gift, and she approached each day with renewed energy and purpose. The most remarkable aspect of Luna's return was not just her physical recovery, but the profound impact her story had on everyone who heard it. Pet Paradise Cemetery became a pilgrimage site for people dealing with the loss of their own beloved animals. Robert Mitchell found himself counseling grieving pet owners who came seeking hope that their companions might also return. While no other pets experienced Luna's miraculous resurrection, many visitors reported feeling a sense of peace and comfort at the cemetery that helped them process their grief. The chapel where Luna had returned to life became a sacred space where people could reflect on the deep bonds they shared with their animal companions. Emma and Jake returned to school as minor celebrities, with classmates and teachers eager to hear about their extraordinary pet. However, the children handled the attention with remarkable maturity, always emphasizing that Luna's return had taught them to cherish every moment with those they loved. Before Luna came back, I thought I understood how much she meant to us, Emma shared during a school presentation about her experience. But now I realize that love is so much stronger than I ever imagined. It's powerful enough to bring someone back when you need them most. Dr. Martinez documented every aspect of Luna's recovery, creating a comprehensive medical record that would be studied for years to come. He published his findings in veterinary journals, always careful to present the facts objectively while acknowledging that conventional medical science could not fully explain what had occurred. The veterinarian also found that Luna's case had transformed his own practice. Pet owners who had previously viewed euthanasia as a definitive ending now approached end-of-life decisions with more hope and less despair. While Dr. Martinez was careful not to promise miracles, he found that Luna's story had given families permission to believe in possibilities beyond their understanding. Thomas Wright, the security guard who had first witnessed Luna's return, became something of a local hero. His careful documentation and professional handling of the situation had preserved crucial evidence of the miracle. He found himself speaking at conferences about the importance of remaining open to extraordinary experiences, even when they challenged conventional beliefs. As weeks passed, Luna's health remained perfect. The cancer that had been killing her showed no signs of returning, and her energy levels exceeded what they had been even in her younger years. She seemed to have retained all her training and memories while gaining an even deeper connection to her family's emotional needs. The mysterious light that had surrounded Luna's casket that first night never appeared again, but those who had witnessed it remained convinced that they had seen evidence of something sacred and supernatural. The experience had changed their perspectives on life, death, and the spiritual bonds between humans and animals. Religious leaders from various faiths visited the Thompson family, seeking to understand Luna's return within their theological frameworks. While interpretations varied, most agreed that Luna's story demonstrated the power of love to transcend physical limitations and the possibility that consciousness could survive bodily death. Scientists continued to study Luna's case, hoping to unlock secrets that might lead to breakthroughs in treating terminal illnesses in both animals and humans. However, Luna's recovery remained unique, defying all attempts to replicate or fully understand the mechanisms behind her return. The Thompson family established a foundation in Luna's name to support families dealing with pet loss and to fund research into the human-animal bond. Sarah used the media attention to raise awareness about the healing power of pets and the importance of treating animal companions with the same dignity and respect given to human family members. Local children began visiting Luna regularly, drawn by her gentle nature and the magical story of her return. The German Shepherd seemed to possess an even greater intuition about human emotions than before, offering comfort to sick children and elderly residents with an almost supernatural understanding of their needs. As winter approached, Luna showed no signs of aging or illness. Her coat remained thick and lustrous, her eyes bright and alert, and her energy boundless. The family veterinary checkups continued to reveal perfect health, as if Luna existed in a state of suspended biological time. The house that had once echoed with grief after Luna's initial death now filled daily with laughter and wonder. Visitors from around the world came to meet the famous German Shepherd, and Luna greeted each one with the same dignified warmth that had always defined her character. Emma often reflected on how Luna's return had changed her understanding of loss and hope. "I used to be afraid that everyone I loved would eventually leave me," she confided to her mother. "But Luna showed me that some connections are too strong to be broken, even by death." The Pet Paradise Cemetery installed a memorial plaque near the chapel where Luna had returned to life, commemorating not just her miraculous recovery, but the hope her story had brought to thousands of grieving pet owners worldwide. The inscription read, "In memory of all beloved companions and in celebration of love's eternal power." As Luna's story continued to inspire people globally, the Thompson family remained grateful for the extraordinary second chance they had been given. They knew that not everyone would experience such a miracle, but Luna's return had proven that the bonds of love between humans and their animal companions possessed a power that science was only beginning to understand. 1 year after Luna's miraculous return, the Thompson family hosted a celebration that brought together everyone whose lives had been touched by their extraordinary German Shepherd. The backyard of their modest home overflowed with visitors. Dr. Martinez and his staff, Robert Mitchell and Thomas Wright from the cemetery, Professor Chen and her research team, neighbors, friends, and dozens of families who had found comfort in Luna's story during their own times of loss. Luna moved through the crowd like a living blessing, her presence bringing smiles to faces that had known deep sorrow. Children who had lost their own pets gravitated toward her, finding in her gentle eyes a reflection of the companions they missed. Adults who had struggled with grief discovered in Luna's story a reason to believe that love truly was eternal. The media attention had gradually subsided, allowing the Thompson family to return to a more normal routine, though their definition of normal now included daily miracles. Luna had become a therapy dog at the local children's hospital, where her intuitive understanding of human pain brought comfort to young patients facing serious illnesses. Doctors and nurses reported that children's recovery time seemed to improve when Luna visited their rooms. Sarah had written a book about their experience, donating all proceeds to animal rescue organizations and pet grief counseling services. The book, titled Beyond the Rainbow Bridge: A Family's Journey with a Miracle Dog, had touched millions of readers worldwide and spawned support groups for people processing pet loss. Emma, now 14, had decided she wanted to become a veterinarian, inspired by watching Dr. Martinez care for Luna and other animals with such dedication. Jake, 12, had developed an interest in animal psychology, fascinated by Luna's seemingly supernatural ability to understand human emotions and respond with exactly the comfort needed. The scientific community remained divided about Luna's case. Some researchers continued searching for logical explanations, theorizing about rare medical phenomena or undiscovered biological processes. Others embraced the mystery, acknowledging that some aspects of consciousness and love might transcend current scientific understanding. Dr. Martinez had documented hundreds of cases where Luna's story had influenced end-of-life decisions for other pets. While no other animals had experienced Luna's dramatic resurrection, many families reported feeling more peace during their final moments with dying companions, inspired by the possibility that death might not be the absolute ending they had feared. Professor Chen's research had led to new studies on the cellular regeneration processes and the potential connections between emotional bonds and physical healing. While Luna remained the only documented case of complete resurrection in the veterinary literature, her cellular structure continued to provide insights that advanced medical understanding of healing and recovery. The Pet Paradise Cemetery had become a destination for people seeking hope and healing. Robert Mitchell had expanded the facilities to include a grief counseling center and a memorial garden where families could celebrate the lives of their beloved pets. The chapel where Luna returned to life remained a sacred space, visited by thousands of people each year. Thomas Wright had left his security job to become a full-time counselor, specializing in grief and extraordinary experiences. His first-hand account of Luna's return had helped him connect with people who had witnessed their own unexplainable events, providing a listening ear for those whose experiences challenged conventional understanding. As the anniversary celebration continued into the evening, Sarah found herself reflecting on the incredible journey her family had taken. The grief that had once seemed unbearable had been transformed into a profound appreciation for the mysterious power of love. Luna's return had taught them that some connections transcend physical existence and that hope could emerge from even the darkest moments. Luna herself seemed to understand the significance of the day. She spent extra time with each visitor, as if blessing them with her presence and sharing some of the miraculous energy that had brought her back to life. Her tail wagged constantly and her eyes sparkled with the same intelligence and love that had always defined her, enhanced now by whatever wisdom she had gained during her brief journey beyond life. As the sun set on the anniversary celebration, Luna curled up beside the fireplace in her favorite spot, surrounded by the family who loved her. Emma and Jake sat on either side of her, reading books while absently stroking her soft fur. Sarah watched from the kitchen doorway, still sometimes finding it difficult to believe that their miracle was real and ongoing. The German shepherd who had once rested in a casket had become a symbol of hope for millions of people around the world. Her story proved that love was indeed stronger than death, and that some bonds could not be broken by physical separation. Luna's return had brought tears of joy not just to her own family, but to everyone who heard her extraordinary tale. In the quiet moments before sleep, as Luna's gentle breathing filled the peaceful house, the Thompson family knew they were living in the presence of a continuing miracle. Their guardian angel had been given back to them, and each day with her was a gift that reminded them never to take love for granted. Luna's story would continue to inspire people for generations to come, a testament to the unbreakable bonds between humans and their beloved animal companions, and proof that sometimes, when love is strong enough, miracles really do happen.